Good evening, everybody. I'm a little bit later than I wanted. I did stay late at work, unfortunately, but I did get something good done. So I kind of had to take the hit on the start time, but I did make sure to get dinner and all the other things. So I don't know how we'll be doing for breaks, but I shouldn't need to scramble around on the stream. One last thing I did want to do, though, is reopen my recipe book. All right. Anyways, I hope you are all well. I'll be in the game in just a minute. I notice I have a little bit of a cough that comes back every once in a while. I don't know if it's a new sickness or the old one. If it's the old one, I should probably have that looked at, but I'm going to hope for the best. Um, all right. Now, I have some notes here in terms of what the overall plan is. I had as an IOU the Book of the Extinguished Heart, and then we would be for our next book. I believe we queued up the books for the first thing tomorrow. So I did make a note to myself just to make sure that I had the right sort of order in mind. So first of all, I do want to make sure that I take care of the titles that I haven't finished yet. So in this case, that would mean the Book of the Extinguished Heart. And so I made a note here that we would do What Does Not Bark, and then I basically will go down through the Savage Hymn giving books. We'll finish off with the Impulses. And then as far as regular books are concerned, it's just our Revelation pile here. What I'll do then is I'll move on to the recordings. That's going to take us a little while. And then we'll take care of the films. But the real finale will be to read all the Newman texts. So the aim on this one was to try and sort of drag a net almost in terms of collecting any books that would have information about Ys, Noon, or the City Unbuilt. And one of the challenges is that out of the books that I'll be reading, they will have their own connections with other things. So I can think of a number of factions which would be appropriate to connect with Noon, but the question is, does that tell me anything about maybe where the City Unbuilt should be built? It's a little bit of a harder question there. If I cast the net too wide, then I essentially wind up including every book, and then at that point I just read the whole library again, and I think people would probably not be happy with that. So the first phase of this, of course, is just to finish the existing reading that I have. That will almost certainly finish today. We'll get a couple of salons done. We've actually got the last two of the big batch that I had planned. And then what I'm going to wind up doing in the semi-near future is just sort of blitzing on all of the characters, like all of the people who I can invite, and that's specifically going to be to see what mysteries they're interested in, because the hope here is that I'm going to be able to find a way to go through the events faster and sort of fill out the ranks of the Lighthouse Institute. Obviously, this has been a long playthrough, and I don't mind that. I actually think it's a nice thing about the game, but I am a little conscious of the fact that this has probably had some consequences for the overall attention to the stream, and even people who like to see Book of Hours maybe don't necessarily want to see incremental progress every single day on the channel. So my view of this has always been to not deliberately take my time on things. So I'm not necessarily extending something out for the sake of extension. But I also don't see any value in spending the time that I have in this to sort of enjoy and explore it, particularly because the Lighthouse Institute is an endgame thing that I've never experienced before. So I do want to take my time with that and see what I think is a satisfying ending to that, and If anything, I think the amount of time that we've spent with this wonderful game, and specifically this wonderful expansion, is I want to make sure that it gets a nice send-off. So that's the plan. I guess it's time to implement it now. Probably should have tried to make some money, but we'll take care of that after the books. All right. Nin's Cages, the Bruges text, illuminated. The merciful measures of the witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil Mabelie of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Mabelie clearly enjoyed drawing both devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against invoking the edicts liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. Mabelie has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window, about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. 7 shards. The Lionsmith, one of the 2 great hours of struggle, broke his sword into 7 shards. Natalia Brulot, 5th librarian of Hush House, describes the nature of each of those shards, allegorically and otherwise. The 3rd shard has been identified with the Cry of Pain. The Lionsmith is a stoic hour, but we must assume that in the sundering moment even he might have been unable to restrain his distress. Now the sound of tin under pressure we call the tin cry, a reason perhaps for the further identification of the 3rd shard as the Shard Royal. The 7th shard we call informally the Invincible Audacity, which is struck from the winning move as the winning move is struck from a memory with the application of sufficient edge. A second glory, the Prince Jusei celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stone, those hours that preceded humanity. Jusei engages in an apologia for the destruction of the hours. They were old, they were cowardly, they were vile, their time had passed, and it was the shining destiny of humankind to seize the house through glorious battle. Jusei recounts how the hour called 7 Coils was slain in battle by the Colonel, how the Grail devoured the hour called Tide, and how the egg unhatching fled like a coward. He's quite vituperative about the egg unhatching. He warns darkly against his return. In Memory of Gods, the Barrowchild, a nameless Gaulish adept who joined an organization identified as the Ordo Lamea, writes regretfully of the destruction of the gods who were stone, the hours who preceded humanity. The Barrowchild singles out the Scarred Tribune, the Red Grail, the Forge, and the Moth for a special condemnation, as murderers of the first gods. We live in the shadow of their crime, she writes, and we must evade it or repeat it. The Barrowchild describes how the Grail drained the hour called Tide, how the Moth usurped the wheel from within, stealing its skin, and how the Forge first eclipsed, then shattered flint. Perhaps these are glories, she observes, but then it cannot be that glory is merciful. We're familiar with this one. Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the Kukurbet. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brankrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their fingerbone. Exercises in the continuity of self, techniques proposed by the Hostorium, the most inaccessible and upsetting of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree, for the persistence of memory after the body is discarded. The soul element, Whist, is regarded as the fundamental value of the individual. All other soul elements, it is implied, may potentially be discarded, as can the individual itself. The Hostorium expresses grudging respect for the hour called Elegist, who calls each of the dead by name, but also concern over the Elegist's subtlety when it chooses to inspire particular interpretations of histories. The Hostorium proposes the use of nowhere energies in distracting or discouraging the Elegist in order to assure the persistence of history remains unalloyed. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries, of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. And Durashu Quirkum, in English the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus baccata, the yew, is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had long understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention more usefully that the minor ink of power, yew-gall, can be brewed through rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. And finally, Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Sybil use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. Okay, so I did say I wanted to try and earn a bit of money. What I'm going to do instead, though, is I'm actually going to restore... Well, okay, what do I gain by restoring the whist? Nothing. So we'll use the whist instead. Should have 2 more rounds for the texts. So first of all, the Arab, and we did want to get the Book of the Extinguished Heart. So I'm just going to take a note here and adjust my IOUs. If I don't keep on top of this stuff, I'm almost certainly going to wind up duplicating effort, which for me is fun because it's more stuff to read and the writing of this game is solid, but like I said, I don't want to arbitrarily extend the playthrough. Of course, your definitions of arbitrary may be different from mine. Alright, we'll use the health this time. So what does not bark? So one of the reasons I feel a little more secure in terms of how the like the elements of the soul that I have left. Usually I kind of save the plus pluses. So there's 2 things that I save the plus pluses for, either, or pluses in some cases. Some of them are just a question of, sorry, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. Like some of them will be, okay, I've got a big book that I need to read and I don't know, you know, I don't know how else to get it. So I'm going to use this right away. But in more practical terms, for me at least, what they do, because of the number of them, right? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This effectively means that as long as I can match one element of the soul to a desk, that basically guarantees that at the end of the day, as long as I don't touch the pluses, I'm going to have what I need to be able to read. Now, there's ways that I can sort of mess that up. So in general, it's nice to have a little bit of a buffer. But it's, again, I every once in a while like to talk about the... I like to talk about some of the tools that I use to try and keep track of things if I feel like I might sort of lose my grip in terms of keeping a set of priorities in mind. So being able to just do little things like saying, it's like, okay, don't touch the pluses unless you have a reason, and then because you're at the end of the day, you know there's nothing else that I could use it for, and so in that case, I'm like, all right, that feels okay to use those. And that's a way that I kind of make sure that I have a fighting chance, at least, of having enough elements of the soul for the end of the day. It's a funny little challenge that the attic. Now, I didn't need to do this, but one of the things that's kind of interesting about the salons is that in the old game, as long as you didn't have a whole lot of things that you wanted to do, or when I say the old game, the pre-DLC version, basically without a salon, you wouldn't have as many reasons to want to do anything but just maximize your elements of the soul. So I don't know if I'd be able to move Faust up, but everything else I'm pretty sure I'd be able to take up to a triple plus. In this case, if I try to do that, it will mean that when the Salon comes, there is a danger that I actually can't satisfy all of the challenges. Now, there's some ways around that, right? It's in that case, I think you can either consider the composition of the guests, or you can, you can just try and get lucky in some cases. Like the idea of needing a whist challenge for every single one. I don't think I've ever run into that. But this kind of guarantees me, as long as I don't commit my elements of the soul to anything else, I know that I'm going to be able to get what I need. All right. Sorry, I also want to remember what book I was on. Book of Masks, or Maya, not Masks. Book of Masks we read earlier. The Book of the Extinguished Heart. In the days of the Shadowless Kings, Ennis Lazali was executed for prophesying the division of the sun. If any of his captors grew long, they probably feel rather abashed now. Lazali indicates that the sun will be divided in the Mallory by the Forge of Days, armed with the love in her heart. Love will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather envy. Envy will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather thirst. Thirst shall not be the cause of his death, but curiosity. Curiosity shall not be his end. Rather, it will be love. I'll save this to the very end of the day just to make sure that I should have the elements of the soul, but... What does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? Those who do not sleep. The mystic Broadnax discusses the origins of the Sister and Witch and of the Thunderskin. The Sister and Witch were born in two wombs, one poor, one rich, across the sea. The Sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The Witch was stronger in the aspect of Grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the Sister and Witch came west, the Red Grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names, and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour, so that the Grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. Unhatched hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of the glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the Menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Against the sisterhood of the knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnerotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the sisterhood of the knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Zarag, good to see you. Hieronymus claimed, did you get to see Prosciutto Fist finish Death's Door yesterday? I wasn't there live, but I will be sure to come and claim that because I didn't see it, she obviously didn't win. Because I'm a nice person like that. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the axe destroyed him as restitution for the destruction of the axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. Singlefoot songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things, with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoot sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. Yeah, that's fair. I also need to work, so I don't always get a chance to watch people as much. You know, Viridian is streaming GTA right now, but I didn't want to get too tied up because I was already running a bit late. The Republic of Teeth. I feel like we read this one recently, but I'm gonna run on the assumption that I'm going with the plan. I didn't read Impulse as part of this big push before, so. Okay, The Republic of Teeth, an eccentric political tract by Valentine de Wolf. Valentine suggests that rulers should be elected to govern by serpents, not their subjects, for the serpent, being cold-blooded in its nature, is incorruptible. Valentine's initial proposal is that a college of electors should subject themselves to the bites of venomous serpents, which he grades and details, preferring the least dangerous, and should allow the resulting deliria to guide them in their choice of people's representatives. He becomes concerned, however, by the practicalities of ensuring equal quantities of venom in each case, and gets halfway into a proposal for using birds instead in the selection process, before giving up mid-sentence. And the collected Hush House lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. 1776, the Third History. Louis declares the Mask of Masks and forbids mention of the great writhing within the halls of the Palace of Versailles, although by this point the worms are observed to move openly among the boulevards of Paris, sometimes even in daylight. The army is redeployed to defend the court. The mask lasts 1 lunar month and attracts several of the Long abroad in Western Europe at the time, fleeing the worms or hoping to take advantage of the desperate Louis, or seeking access to the sealed mirrors of the palace, or just eager to attend the most inventive and desperate debauch of the century. Many espouse wormish sympathies. Let 100 histories flourish, tear down the tyranny of eternity. To grow long is usually to cast off these sympathies. There would be no immortality without eternity, and eternity, we often seem to decide, is only tyranny as long as we are not eternal. And finally, the Concursum Diaries. The diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansis subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you find water in a swamp and in a cup and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions into the Mansis. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansis changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have always been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansis. We're like mice. Alright, so one last batch of books. And I think this is the point where I might entertain adding the adding some of the recordings as well. Trying to remember if there's languages I need for these, but I think we're good. Alright, so we are on to the lantern texts now. Alright, and then I know I'm going to have to do a tower rises and a tower falls separately. I know we've read or listened to Opening the Sky countless times, but I have a plan and I'm sticking to it. Okay. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Book of Maya, an account of the 5 visits of the desert wanderer, probably an hour called the Vagabond, to the city Maya. She begins as a delighted child, perhaps even a mortal, but things go badly. In her second visit, she came as a laughing thrush. Her heart was bright within, her beak was ripe with song, but in the first moment her feathers touched the city stones, the laughter began. The Wanderer's penultimate visit is as Centipede, whose venom cracks stone. Maya is abandoned to the desert, but she returns one last time again as Laughing Thrush, with 4 other hours who take the shape of birds to celebrate the first roost above the bones of her hated kin. The Orchid Transfigurations, A Feast, a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. The illustrations are certainly striking. They flesh the skin and glow beneath the eyelids after the book is closed. We must devour to be devoured. We cannot be undevoured as we cannot be unborn. If you will excuse me, there is one thing I forgot to do, and I might be able to do it after stream, but I'd feel a little bit better if I just get it done while I remember. It's just going to take me a minute. I will be back momentarily. All right, sorry about that, and I appreciate your patience. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns again to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement, and it becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong, they recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. I'm going to skip over that one for now. I have a plan on that. From History to Eternity, a contraband manual of the Inks of Revelation. The author explains in a brief foreword that she is a high-ranking officer of an agency of the duties, and that though she supports its mission, she has concerns about the long-term consequences of its work. All histories braided into a golden loop, a shining ascent to eternity. I never imagined I could be afraid that there might be too few truths. I could be wrong, but I'd like to leave at least one door ajar. Ichor Auroral can be brewed into an Incastum Terminale associated with the second history, using Inks of Revelation techniques with rose aspect. The author warns that this is exceptionally difficult, since these techniques aren't aligned with rose, but that's why I'm hoping the door will stay ajar, even once all the others are closed. I wish you luck. The Three and the Three Vatican Manuscript, a church-authorized version of an older text. This book describes the chancel and the calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has clearly been reworked to fit church doctrine. The deepest knowledge is forbidden to all mortals except those who seek it beneath the watchman's tree. It is Calyptra that planted that tree, but it is the chancel, the cruciate, that has elected Calyptra. Who then elected the cruciate? Or is this, as the saying goes, a matter of Janus? The sister in witch is cruciate, but the witch and sister is not. Even those powers that demand a conjunction are not always conjoined. When the sister is nowhere, does that mean nowhere sits in crucium? That was one of the ones we referred to earlier in terms of the mare and the tree, I think. Or was it the apple bright? One of the two. I think it might have been the apple bright now that I think of it. The History of Inks, a legendary grimoire of exotic ink-making lore. The cover and some of the pages, unfortunately, are stained and crusted with something more like mucus than ink. The Incastum Maricat is refined from the liquor named Lethe in the presence of nectar aspect. The priestesses of the knot have also learned how to brew Maricat in this wise, yet for the nature of their arts, their task may be easier. The history concludes with the admission that the Incastum named Orpiment Exultant was once drawn from the veins of Forgelong. Thankfully, it seems that it can also be refined from iotic essence using the techniques in the book, or with transformations and the jewel science. The Three and the Three Kerishim Manuscript. A more recent version of a much older text, this book describes the operation of the chancel and the calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has been heavily censored, but even so contains potent secrets. The deepest knowledge is safeguarded by the Covenant of the Watchman's Tree, whose patrons are Calyptra. The three flowers on the Watchman's Tree: blood, soot, and snow. Calyptra may be known as Night, Dawn, Eclipse. The chancel may be known as Threshold, Mirror, Shell. Calyptra and chancel, then, are two. Is Janus the third? Sorry, if you can just give me a second here. Enchiridion Triangularis, the poison manual of the Order of Assassins called the Triangulari. The Triangulari, dartsmen, were employed by the duties in their various incarnations to hunt down inhuman troublemakers. They developed poisons that even the immortals called Long could not withstand. Immunity to their own poisons was a constant concern for the Triangulari, and they constantly dosed themselves with substances that might build up their immunity. Perinculate, the notoriously toxic unsanctioned ink, can be used as a base for one of these, serpent milk, with sufficient scale and with the arts of serpents and venoms. Sunrise Awakenings, an uncharacteristically poignant meditation by the edge-long Trog of Marianid, who later came to Hush House under a variety of other names, often in search of some sort of fight. If light were not silent, it would be music. If music were visible, it would be light. Each day's light, Trog suggests, is faintly touched by the light of every past day. So, in the light of every present day, we may begin to understand something of days to come. At least this appears to be his conclusion, but he stops mid-sentence, apparently having lost patience with the act of writing, or possibly being ambushed. The Alloy of the White Rose, an account by Mistress Whiteflower of the alchemical techniques favored by the House of York, also identified with the Dawn Road. These techniques failed to bring them victory in the War of the Roads, but are not to be discounted. The author asserts proudly that the Dawn Road ends in the Second Dawn, and hints darkly that the downfall of the House of York was Grail sabotage. Mistress Whiteflower urges a history of Uzalt, where the Second Dawn may come to pass. She identifies xanthotic essence as Uzalt's predecessor. She explains that with sufficient lantern, bitter black salts can be purified to xanthotic essence, and iotic essence can be exalted to xanthotic essence. Alright, and a tower rises. The phonograph is packed in glossy card, the bright pink of a dog rose, with the words "A tower rises" in 9 languages on both sides. There is no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry recorded by a speaker with a high, sweet voice that scales up beyond human hearing in the language called Vak, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of the wheel that turns, the coil that turns, the tide that returns, egg that returns. It speaks of a cloven sky, an open heart, a dream of glittering eyes. Speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken in dreams before the deep door by a messenger of histories. A package. Alright, back to reading. So far we don't have anything on the list that we don't have anything on the IOUs. So if I'm lucky, we might be able to get this done in 2 batches. Alright. Got the Vagabond desk. Oh yes, actually some of these are probably going to have more than one Deep Man die. I probably should have spaced them out in anticipation, but that's fine. We'll run with what we've got. Yeah. But it looks like we're only short the 1. So I guess it was 2 rounds anyway. Alright. So got those queued up. Next we'll take care of the remaining recordings, so we will listen to A Tower Falls. Needs the back. Use health in this case. And then for the other phonograph, we go on to the Invisible Opera, and then we're done with it. At least until the next round of lessons we need to get. Now's not a bad time for me to start working on the we'll start working on the films as well. And we'll make some money. Could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Not complaining about the rain, but not something we're going to make use of. Right now we need knowledge. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Oh no! Letters to my successor. Advice from Gervinus van Loren, 11th librarian of Hush House, to the one who will come after him. Some of the advice is practical. Don't worry about losing the house key. Always close the seaward windows. Make sure you feed the cockatoo. Much more of it is rarefied, especially about the Inks of Revelation, and some of it relates to Van Loren's own doom. When I was another, I made a foolish wager with the hooded princes to solve 7 riddles. I had not realized the riddles would be set for me by the one I would become. 6 are resolved. The 7th will be the end of me. It waits now in the cellar of the jail, where Collars still believes I can keep it confined, but the first riddle told me I would not see the second dawn. Now what I'm going to do at Ava's desk here, I'm just going to take advantage of the open spot to... Oh, I can't do that, because I don't have the Mendiac yet. The known unknown Tantra. Carlos Garcia Sauri, the ecstatic mystic of the Pyrenees, was known to recite this in 3 languages, though he had never visited the subcontinent. The known unknown Tantra describes a journey to the white door of the Mansis, beyond which speech ceases. It describes a mantra which can be used at the right place and time to achieve that door. The light of a lantern can only reveal the space between the forest shadows. Sorry, one more moment, please. All right. Colors in the Liver. Ilse Bischoff's most controversial film, blamed for outbreaks of cannibalistic killings in Tiflis and Leipzig. A gang of heretic priests agrees to strike the fear of the change into the infuriatingly atheist citizenry. At night, they dressed as 4-winged angels and crawled down chimneys and through windows to savage members of their congregation. The priests are caught by unidentified figures wearing heavily mandibled masks, like grotesque caricatures of ants. They are force-fed larvae. A final caption indicates that at dawn the larva will hatch. I can queue up another film, but let's just go through this as we normally did, and we'll do it in order. The Invisible Opera, unfinished recording. A recording of a 1911 attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the Skewbald aria, Beneath Our Skin, and A Rose in Maya without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Farazref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft brass buzzing that fades into burring silence. Prophecies of Glory, religious and patriotic fables collected or composed by William Gore. This is much more sober in tone than Gore's previous Wainscot histories. Evidently, he became religious in his later years. Each fable describes the coming of the second dawn, when the hours of the sun will be united, but in Eternity Denied, the Vampire Light and the Feast of Rays, Gore depicts a tainted dawn, which can only be purified by a second division of the sun. He insists repeatedly on the dangers and temptations of a false dawn. The Locksmith's Dream, Stolen Reflections, the 4th volume of Teresa Galmier's expansive work, no longer a discussion of the dreams of artisans, but a valuable survey of other works. The tone here is calmer than of Trespasses, but occasionally fearful, even paranoid. The volume was published in 1926, but almost immediately recalled and pulped by the publisher at the request of the author, or possibly the authorities, depending on which story you believe. A few copies survive. Janus is the gatekeeper, the twin god, the god that wounds, the presager of changes, the sun, the moon, so we identify him with the watchman, the twins, with the mother, with the forge, with the Meniscate and the Madrigad. He cannot be all these, can he? The Flamines knew the church, knew the dry land, knew Elagabalus. Is he then Synthesis? Or is he something else? In Galatea they call him Aeneas Lamius, but the Obliviots are notorious for their slanders. Janus has, they say, not one face but two, to which I reply, why only one? Why only two? Hirschfeld and Coseley, according to Thomas Love Denman, once agreed that Janus was all the gods and none, but later Hirschfeld described him as all the gods, and Coseley favored none. Denman was a sinister dilettante, but this rings true of them both. The focus of Amber, Omar the Blaze, spent 7 years manning a lighthouse in Tyre in atonement for the extinguishing of a sacred flame. By the end of his stint, he was so terrified of fire that he could not stand to share a room with a candle. This work was written in partial penance. How you doing, Jamie? Omar claims that the hour called Watchman is both a god who was flesh, an hour who was mortal, and also a god from light, an hour who descended from the glory, but adds finally that the Watchman's origin is triple, and that, in essence, he is Amber. The Watchman, according to Omar, was once another hour entirely, who ascended into the glory to escape efforts by other hours to send him to nowhere. It may be that Omar's sense of persecution creeps into the narrative at this point. Certainly, it grows less coherent, but the last part is still devoted to attempts to prove that eyes, eggs, and the sun are all in some sense conjunct. The Locksmith's Dream, A Light Through the Keyhole, the first volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The parallels in mystic dreams experienced by carpenters, masons, and other artisans, and what they purport to reveal about the architecture of the world. Surprisingly mordant and even funny, no one has ever explained why Galmier devoted herself to this chaotic exploration of artisans' dreams. Time and again we hear of the wood which rises from the world's foundation. All trees reach for light. What does the wood reach for? Is there a difference between light and light? I think the key to dreams of the wood might be one of these, the one that isn't exactly real. The Book of the White Cat, stories brought by a blind white cat to Penelope of Gordian. The aviform hours, the crow, the laughing thrush, the dove, the twin kites have been known to meet in the mountains north of Gordian at a place called the Roost to exchange gossip. Penelope indicates that mortals who hear their words directly are obliterated, but claims that her cat goes unnoticed and returns to her with rumors from the hour's meetings. The stories that Penelope claims as hour gossip are fragmentary and confusing, accounts of contests where hope and dread and the Shadowless Empire are used as game pieces, agendas of ruin and remembrance from no known history. The most interesting element is the protective incantation she records at the end of the book, after she worries that the hours might in fact learn of her spying. The Secret Colors, Black Ellie, disgraced Damascene matriarch of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, wrote this while fleeing agents of the duty. Ellie writes of the secret colors of the sun, the blessed traces of error, weaknesses in sunlight, balancing principles in its reflection. A deeper account of these secret colors, Ellie reveals, was kept at a shrine to the 3 hours of the chancel at the Grey Rock in the sea, far from the intrigues of the sisterhood and church. It is hidden from the common eye, but can be revealed with the arts of sickle and eclipse. And A Tower Falls. The phonograph is packed in glossy amethyst purple card with the words A Tower Falls in 9 languages on both sides. There is no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry, recorded by a speaker with a rasping, crumbling, impossibly deep voice, in the language called Vac, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of a 4-winged war, a 4-mouthed king, a 4-rayed sun, a 4-cornered stone. It speaks of a tide-washed hunger in the heart. It speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken in dreams before the deep door by a messenger of histories. Okay. So we've already made a little progress on the what am I trying to say? Earning money, but I didn't want to do that. And Each Flame is Fuel, I believe, is the last of the texts. Not counting the Newman ones, of course. So we'll start there. Next up is are the recordings. So Lake Fusino recordings, and then the interview with the being that claims to be the Seven Coils. All right, now I don't want to waste the opportunity with the consider verb. I do have the package to open, but what I do also want to do is consider some paintings. Now I'm trying to decide. There are sometimes references to the regions that I'm interested in. So nope, that would have been the description. What was it? Giver, Teller, Sure's Tongue, Lady Janice, and Great Paycock are the names of these bells, though they're older than the abbey itself, and those names have certainly been corrupted over the years. By 1915, Sure's Tongue and Lady Janice were too cracked to ring, and the Suppression Bureau paid for them to be recast. Serena Blackwood's quid pro quo for assistance she gave George Collars with his clock project. I always thought there was a reference to Nope, here it is. The Spire. Here, Hendrik de Wolf met in secret with King Henry, once the Bronze King, now Old Copper-Nose, for the great debasement had ended the supremacy of the Leashed Flame. Henry's heirs were no more than human. There's a story that Hendrik's son Thomas listened from the rafters, that 3 times he heard Henry ask his father to break a certain promise in the matter of Carriers beyond the wave, and the 3rd time the father did not refuse the king. This, says the story, is why Thomas never liked to make a promise thereafter, for fear of breaking it. I think I'm actually going to make some notes here, so I'll put down the Spire. So there's a side of me that wonders, it wouldn't hurt to read all the different rooms, but maybe after the books? But what I would like to do is anything I can interact with that might be related to Noon or Ys. I'd like to follow up on. Obviously, I can't examine every single item in the house, but I know there's at least one painting. I'm just trying to see if any of these other ones will jog my memory for the other. So this one I think is, yeah, Carriers. I mean, we can start with that one for sure. They're all a little tricky without prodding. So maybe what I'll do is I will review the rooms after the painting, but I won't go out of my way to do it right now. Should have paid attention. Oh, hang on, I don't have Deep Man Dyack, so we're gonna have to save that for another round. Carriers, a spired city is dimly visible through a vast rolling wave. Signed, Nina Lagasse. Well, that didn't tell me much. Better now. Each flame his fuel, a work by Omar the Blaze, an initiate or craftsmaster at the Labyrinth of Lions. Omar describes his work in the construction of mirrors for the enclosure of a sacred flame and his slow realization of a flaw in the glass. Omar explains how his lightsmithing techniques can be used in the presence of sufficient lantern to enrich xanthotic essence into the great ink of the first history, but he pleads caution in its use, lest the chandler be realized. The Open Head, Ilse Bischoff's hallucinatory quasi-documentary, notionally about the Greco-Turkish War of the previous decade. A hammer-armed Turk and a sword-armed Greek pursue each other through the Pindus, setting traps for each other, robbing peasants, chalking insulting graffiti on the walls. The tone is notionally anti-war, but any scholar of the invisible arts would recognize the Edge Hour subtext and the Hyksos messages in the graffiti. The sword wielder methodically fills a church with candles, lights each one, strips again to the waist to reveal his terrible scars. His chest somehow swings open like a cupboard door to reveal a blood-drenched book, and the film ends. And the Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes. The wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendrazons of the Mansis keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. Alright, let's queue up our reading material again. Do I want to do the Newman texts now? I think I can get away with one round without them. And we're already at the Sweet Bones. I'm also going to open that package because I think I'd prefer to just read the different rooms than try and guess which paintings might be relevant. I know I had a couple notes somewhere written down in terms of just my individual interests. One thing I am actually kind of looking forward to when finishing finishing this on stream is I get to kind of play this like I did Cultist Simulator, in the sense that I can kind of do it on my own time and have my little notebook. Now, again, it's not a complaint about doing it this way. I've really enjoyed sharing this game with everyone, but it does let me it does let me hang on. We need to restore. Playing on my own does sort of let me just sit down with a notepad and like just spend some time musing and sketching out a few things and kind of playing it the way I did the earlier game. Experiment Beyond Sight, Ilse Bischoff's bewildering, widely derided final film. The film is an unrelenting fusillade of apparently unrelated images: birth, mirrors, grain threshers, animal attacks, crowds, at stations. But a single image appears again and again, dominating the rush of images until the film is only a single static shot. The repeating image is a view through a grimy window pane of a nearby tower. There's a vague impression of flickering light around the tower top. Just as the film ends, smoke plumes from the tower. That's it. Nothing of note at all, unless one happens to recognize the view of the Crucible Tower from the window of the librarian's quarters, and unless one happens to know that Ilse Bischoff never visited Brandkrug or even Britain before her untimely death. Let me place it where I want it. All right. I'll leave it now. I'll leave it for now. But I have my eye on it. Recordings from the Althabin Abyss. Recordings from a subterranean space in the mountains near Baghdad of conversations between the entomologist Juliana Zawadzowski and an identified presence. Only Zawadzowski's part in the conversations is comprehensible to the listener. The other side consists of grating, buzzing, and rumbling sounds, perhaps only rock movements or artifacts of the recording process, which Zawadzowski nevertheless unhesitatingly translates. Zawadzowski seems to believe that the presence identifies itself as a name or remnant of the lost hour called Seven Coils. It pleads with her to assist its rebirth. It begs her to find something for it in the city of Emesa. Towards the end of the interview, Zawadzowski grows suspicious and repeatedly accuses the presence of being not the Seven Coils at all, only an inhabitant. The recording ends mid-sentence. Oswin, lovely to see you. How are you doing tonight? It actually occurred to me that from some of our conversations, I was wondering, or not wondering, but I was thinking you may be interested in a few of the texts that talk about the Hostorium and the Crowned Growth. Not necessarily because I think you'll agree with them, I just think you'll find them interesting. But folks, for those of you who don't know, Oswin Meow does occasionally stream, a lovely person to have inside of chat, but also a lovely person to watch. She's done Disco Elysium, which I know a lot of people will, enjoy and are looking forward to seeing on this channel. I've watched her play Helldivers 2, although that was in a co-op situation. And of course, has played Book of Hours, and I've actually really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed watching Oswin's Book of Hours playthrough because I think of the Book of Hours streamers I've watched, he's the one who's really embraced this idea that it's a game to be sort of explored, that rushing through it is not necessarily the most rewarding way to play. And it's really interesting to hear her think through some of the ideas. There's definitely some takes that she's had on the material where I'm like, I haven't really thought of that before. So definitely somebody, particularly if you like this game, definitely someone that I would strongly recommend to give a follow. Although, of course, don't take that only as a Book of Hours streamer only. I think Oswin is a very thoughtful and interesting streamer who's worth watching for a number of different reasons. You are curled up with a heated blanket. Very cold and windy here. It's gotten a little bit warmer on my end, but when I say warmer, I mean it's 8 degrees Celsius as opposed to, or sorry, minus 8 degrees Celsius as opposed to like minus 17. So, I mean, I'll take it. It's better than before. Oh, sorry, my apologies. It's minus 12. I think I'm looking at the wrong. Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's, oh lordy, it's going to get minus 20 tomorrow. Can I stay home? Yeah, I mean, Oswin, one of the reasons why so number one, I like your stuff. I think that kind of goes without saying, but it's worth saying to the people watching. But I actually think that's one of the better reasons to talk someone up to people. Because the thing is that, like, you never know when the next stream is going to be, right? I don't think people are sort of sitting on pins and needles wondering when you're going to be going live next. But I think if they do that follow, and they see you on the list, that's an opportunity. It's like, oh yeah, that's the streamer System Jock talked about. I've always thought that's a better way of doing it because I know, like, I always love it when people shout me out. But I know, and I mean, I have the, I think I have it somewhere in here, but there's that saying that people say, well, follows are free. And I'm like, well, surely we can do better than that, right? It doesn't cost you anything. So do this thing for them. My view is that there is usually a reason why the person I'm shouting out is worth watching, why I like watching them. It's a chance to let them know what I like, because let's face it, you don't always hear that from people. But on top of that, it's a nice little way of keeping that in people's mind so that, again, it could be months before they wind up checking out the stream, but I just like to think that there's something that's going to connect them and say, okay, I followed that, and next time it's on, they can decide if it's for them or not. So, but of course, I appreciate you setting the expectations for everyone, just so you don't get swarmed on your first day back. Okay, we are going to be reading some Newman texts now. We've got the Admonitory Automata project being read. So now I should probably include at least one copy of Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic. I don't know if it matters that much, but okay. This one's also going to be an interesting test. I've always had the belief that the last book that you start reading is the one... Oh, I don't have the crack track, so we're going to have to set that aside. I've always kind of believed that the last book that you commit is the one that... I forgot to add the Killisimi. I'm a fool. All right, that's 2 that I wasted. Anyways, the last text that you commit at the same time is the one that has the last memory. We'll see if that turns out or not. This is also the first time you're sitting down in front of a computer that doesn't have to do with work, so it's nice watching your stream again. So relaxing. Oh, that's lovely to hear, Oswin. We're actually on our way to determining the history that we're going to write, and I'm currently looking for books that talk about Port Noon, which you'll probably remember from Cultist Simulator, and Ys Behind the Wave, which is one that I think only comes up in Cultists or in Book of Hours, if I'm not mistaken. So I've read all of the books in the house currently, except for the text that has a Newman. Yes. I'm going to see if there's a way that I can approach this without giving too much away. Because it deals with the... It deals with the reason why the librarian's here. I think the best thing I can do is to look at the journal itself. So, the Silverbound Journal. I was rich, but something was missing. I am no longer rich, and still something is missing. Hush House is a place of conclusions, and here as librarian I may find mine. So in the square brackets, which is usually the developer note here, so the magnate came to the house to conclude a history where they will find peace, but you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Hushery Wisdom. So this idea of recording a history is something you actually get to do in the game. And there'll be a little more text to that effect that I can mention. And we've done some intermediate steps. So what I'm going to read to you here is a particular decision I made. There are other options that you have. But there are determinations that you can write in your journal to make the histories easier to write. So in this case, we determined we came from nowhere. The Thriddage kind of the Carapace Cross dreamed themselves out of black glass to be their own monarch. If we inherit the empty throne, we dream ourselves into every night to come. This determination is made with sky. It provides sky and forge. Black, the first flower. The Watchman's Tree is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brankrug Isle. The Black Flower of Calyptra, the Knight Unwounded, was its first defense. Forbidden knowledge must not be spoken, must not be written, must not be known. The tree is rooted in night. Speech the key. Language is the key. It was language that opened the doors of the Mansis. Without language, we would have had no peace. Without language, we would still be beasts, worms, mud. And the horned axe, the oldest. The horned axe bears 2 blades, permits passage when passage is to be permitted, waits at the threshold. The horned axe, who forbids contradiction, is the oldest hour. Other hours might seem older. They are not older. So these you actually get to rewrite if you want. You are not limited to, you're not forced to keep these if you want. You will have to use an ink to get rid of them and write a new one. But these are the ones I went with. However, once you write a history, that's it. You can't change it. So this is one of the reasons why we've been putting a little more effort into that particular one. There are mechanical reasons why you might want to choose one over another, but obviously I also like to pick the ones that I think are interesting and might fit the character that I'm building. Okay, I think we're good. So the serpent root, the sun disfigured. I think that's it. And then I guess I'll need the Copperlinth and Phalos again, but okay, better now. Amiranus Spitali. Oh, actually, you know what? I should probably be reading these one at a time to read each of the Newman fragments. Well, that's fine. I'm happy enough to read the texts on their own, and then we can look at the Newman that they give me. So, Amiranus Spitali. A fragment of iron alloy meteorite, carefully inscribed and polished. This object houses a Newman, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. Who gave us fire? Who gave us steel? What is the sound of dusk? Of what alloy is wind forged? Esoteric secrets of metallurgy and resonance are revealed, including directions towards the creation of a terrible bell. The sun's design, a scorched slab of black corundum, minutely scratched on every side by intricate ideoglyphs. In the city of Emesa, beneath the Church of the Holy Belt, in a sarcophagus of black corundum, Elagabalus lies, accursed of Janus, neither long nor mortal, neither man nor woman, neither a liar nor a speaker of truth, neither real nor imagined. On his light suffused skin is made manifest the sun and splendor's grand design. Elagabalus is the source of one half of this text. The source of the other half is obscure, but its power is evident. It is impossible to be certain if the sun really planned for us to enter eternity. It is impossible to be sure if the Grail, the Vagabond, and the Forge stole this birthright from us or saved us from it. But there is a great secret here. The Admonitory Automata Project, and I think because you've seen what's at the top of the house now, this might have a particular interest for you, Oswin. Footage of experimental devices under development. Excuse me. Footage of experimental devices under development in the Kukurbit under Governor Collar's supervision. The admonitory automata are nasty little things of spring and wire, but they all have merry faces of painted tin. The last item shown is a prototype towards something called a condignator, which, Collar says proudly, will allow a prisoner to elaborate their own punishment. He hastens to add that he hopes that in the coming era, punishment will be an entirely obsolete concept. The writing on the wall. The most delicious traditions of the Carapace Cross, as recorded on the walls of the Mansis and transcribed into a book of 99 pages by one known only as CC, Although this book does not exist, it is read to a sleeper under certain very specific circumstances, and certain fragments jotted down on waking. It was hunger that made worms of dragons when they consumed the corpses of ours. Without the saber secret of the carapace, their hunger would not have been sufficient. Here is outlined the saber secret of the carapace, which harnesses hunger to permit impossible hybridizations. With this secret, even the most potent and fundamental entities have devoured and been devoured. And this, no doubt, is why it's secret. Shritic Book of Suns, a radically different text from any other versions of the Book of Suns attributed to Hagar, Queen of Shur, Mother of Wolves. Set down with reverence before the intercalate by one who understood what would come to pass. Apocryphal chapters foretell the means by which the sun and splendor in the forge might circumvent the impossibility of their joining, through proxies that are in some sense themselves. And a child's treasury of golden afternoons. Once upon a time, a very bad man encoded very bad secrets into the charming illustrations of a book of charming stories. Wake the pictures and you'll see. Lord Jacob Gristwood, surgeon, ethnologist, philanthropist. There's no proof he ever kept children in hutches beneath his bed. There's no proof he vivisected cats at dinner with his penknife. The Suppression Bureau keeps its secrets. Here's your paint, whispered the wolf to the pale girl. Here's your knife for scraping, and here's your face. Newman, a merciless alteration, the fundamental flaw, the irresistible shortcut, the hate that heats, the change that mars, the scar that opens. These are the foulest histories. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the artist and the archaeologist can win a particular victory. So Newman, write a truth in a book that no one reads, then drop dead. No one knows what you wrote, unless the truth is Newman. Noumena are truths so powerful that they tentatively believe themselves. You can use a Newman to write a new history at a suitable desk, if you can assemble 25 of a matching aspect. And we've got Rubywise Ruin for our trouble. So we're not going to have everything read in the one day. We're going to have to... oh, Lord, everything got mixed up. So I think we'll do... We did the sun's design, so we'll do Coprolith and Follows, Serpent Root, and then the sky and the scar to the right. Oops. I have no idea how I get the window back. Alright, round 2. So this one needs Kilisimi. Should have put that in there in the first place. This one needs the crack track, so that denies me the sun disfigured until tomorrow. And of course tomorrow we'll be working on the next event. Natan's desk, we will read The Sky and the Scar, so that's a Sabazine book. Three and the Three, St. Chiavi manuscript. I don't know if you've gotten to this point, because I've had a couple of playthroughs where I didn't get the 3 and the 3, but there's 3 different versions of it. The Karashim, the Vatican, and the St. Chiavi. Alright, where was I? The Turquoise Hand. And then we won't be able to read both of these because they both require Ericapean. Okay. I guess we can make some... Oh, we're already making the money. We can maybe try and get a few goodies at Crowcross Sands while we wait. So, Snow Stories there. Preliminal meter because I like to be extravagant. I actually don't have any moon left, so... Sky Stories, there we go. Have a chat with the gulls too. I guess it can also probably... It's the last day of autumn, so I might as well make it count. Do a little gardening. And let's go for the pears, actually. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Okay. The Copperlinth amphalos. What is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed, and something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. This is one really where the contents of the book, the memory that you get, sort of tells you what it's about. The Sky and the Scar, gnomic exhortations that might be described as emergency procedures for the return of the traveling kinds of the Carapace Cross. Each page of this book, except the last, bears a single sign, clear and irrefutable as a gem. The final page is empty. The traveling kinds of the Carapace Cross might never return. The Turquoise Hand, a calligraphic manual of Ramsund, which employs as exemplar text Fairedu Din's Conference of the Birds. At noon, the sun moves like the beating of a wing. At sunset, he sends the herald child with her candle. At midnight, he sends the wind that extinguishes the candle flame. Commentary, illustrations, and interleavings carry revelations never intended in the original, a sense of history, and the senses of histories. And another favorite for the Coseley fans, Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, or The House of Glass. Julian Coseley considered this his masterwork. Techniques for perception and analysis, which permit invidious and apocalyptic conclusions. Probably the most assiduously suppressed book in history, the entire run was destroyed. Even the presses were melted and dispersed, but the manuscript edition has survived. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal, but Coseley proposes and describes confinement inescapable, aesthetic and optical techniques which might contain even an hour, profoundly disrupting the order of the Mansis. He presents this as his own work, but there are hints here and there that he received inspiration or even assistance from the nowhere hour named Snow. Serpent Root, a mass of rootstock, shiny with age, but still somehow viable. Tiny spidery scratchings, marked with embedded eggshell shards, encode a cryptic message. Seaborn, Tide Drawn, Meniscate Sister, Witch Lover. The House of the Moon will always have its messenger, though its messenger is different each time, in eye and flesh and heart. Fates, feats, posterns, loopholes set down against the advent of eternity by powers favoring imperfection and impermanence. and The Three and the Three, St. Chiavi manuscript. This book describes the operations of the Chancel and the Calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. Of all the extant versions, this one has best survived the interventions of the Calyptra. Certain knowledge cannot be learned by any entity below the rank of No, outside the covenant of the Watchman's Tree. The enforcement of this rule is Calyptra. The three who enforce it are Calyptra also. It is said that Janus elects Calyptra, and that the Chancel is the judgment of Janus, that Janus is the wound in the law. The Watchman's Tree is a compromise. If Calyptra could end it, they would. If the Watchman could end Calyptra, he might. Between their planes conflicting, sparks illuminate the angles of unmade law. Okay, so I'm going to leave that be, because we're going to have a new season come up. We may also have Numa come up, but... Goodies! I don't even know what I got. An egg. And looks like we did wind up with a mackerel, so that's nice. Okay, the three rules. The hours are bound by their own edicts, even the Chancel and the Calyptra. That's why their deepest rules are secret. In certain histories, if we know those deepest rules, we know what even the Chancel and the Calyptra may not do. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the revolutionary can win a particular victory. So we're playing at 6 speed just so I can get the books read, but we are on to a new season now, so we'll slow things down a bit. I want to see who's coming for the event before I make any firm decisions. And it's winter time. Alright, we're on the Affair of the Particular Mystique. The Suppression Bureau has a growing interest in the recent fad for unconventional, often prophetic, religious movements. No laws have been broken, nothing sinister has come to light. All these movements are comfortingly solar in nature, but there does seem to be something going on. Visitors with an interest in winter or lantern mysteries will want to talk about this. I suppose I could get my invitations written. I probably should have done that a little bit earlier, but... Well, we'll see who the guest is. Maybe we'll decide to do the salon. Yeah, let's say we'll do the salon tomorrow no matter what. Oh, the Christmas decorations are still up. The tree isn't, though, right? Signor Corso Reverte, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics. Few would deny his acuteness. Okay, so I might as well start writing down... I have a plan for getting through the events rather quickly. So one of the steps in that plan, though, is going to be... I want to make sure that I don't... one of the steps in that plan is making sure that I have the interests written down. So... Sorry, I just saw a message from someone. I feel like I've written a good message when my friend replies with the throwing up emoji. Okay. So in terms of the guests for the Winter Salon, it was actually going to be Corso. So in this case, let's deal with the affair of the particular Mystique, and we will definitely do the Salon tomorrow. I don't need an appointment, do I? A shadow cast by 2 candles, who passeth with the dawn. You know that one, librarian? From an unauthorized version of the Celian prayer. Very unauthorized. Try a book with as much mystery lantern as their lantern interest. A lot of dawn iconography around these new cults. Some of them have a little pash for figures like Sunset Celia, who you might know is theologically interesting. Archbishops paid me to look into the origins of the Celian prayer, see if anything embarrassing might come up. So I think we probably can just do the known unknown tantra. I wonder if we can get something. Yeah, Sunrise Awakenings works too. Found something, librarian. You heard of the Chandler? Might be an hour, might be a myth. Not recognized by the church either way. I never made the connection with Sunset Celia. I wonder if the Archbishop will pay me to explain it to him. Or if he'll pay me not to. Okay, so while Corso is doing his thing, let's get the remaining books that I had on the list. And my invitations, I gotta remember to do that. So, The Sun Disfigured was the Crack Track one. And then Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, second edition. And then that's it for the Newman texts, although I'll probably read them one at a time again, because of the fact that the Newman that you get is actually relevant to the reading. Now, let's get some invitations. So I'll worry about the Salon first, and then I will do the invitations for everyone. Oh, right, the typewriter. Alright, so Corso is the first invitation. Yvette Southey will be the next. Book. I can't remember what Yvette Southey wants. Moon. So EX Marshall will do there. I don't remember, or I don't know what the relationship with Yvette Southey is with Robert Southey, but I'm sure it'll come up the more I read. All right, Zachary Wakefield. We need something with heart. We don't need something with heart, but it's convenient to have something with heart. Not Megaphine Mysteries. I'm looking for Quenchings and Quellings. Nope. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Zachary to Brandkrug. Then Aaron Peel and Douglas Moore, the Weary Detective. So Aaron Peel needs Moon, so we can use the Edicts Marshal again. And then Douglas needs lantern, so we can use Collar's desk again, because again, Collars is the unappreciated hero of Book of Hours. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Douglas Moore to Brandkrug. So the expectation is that I'll invite everybody tomorrow. I probably actually also need to lay out the table, so... But I'll work that out later. It's kind of a lazy day, if I'm honest. Okay. So, the responses to the affair of the particular mystique. Dr. Southey refused the blandishments of the cult called the Ivory Dawn, but suspected that they honored her by reason of a pre-immortal in her ancestry. It wasn't clear what Zachary Wakefield intended with the new crop of cults, but it was clear that it was nothing especially constructive. Lieutenant Moore dared to hope that he might begin to understand the Sun's plan. Fraser Strathcoyne believed that something had drawn the Obliviots, the Long who'd secluded themselves in Port Noon, back to the world. And Corso suggested that the new doctrine suggested a connection to him between the enigmatic hour called the Chandler and the name of the watchman, Sunset Celia. And here we go. The Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. The author of the text calls herself the Allegabline. Sometimes she seems to be Sunset Celia, the watchman's name. Sometimes she seems to be Lady Tryphon, the Grail Long. It is unclear whether these are separate entities or the same person. It may be unclear even to the writer. The flaws in the Sun's plan are elucidated. The Sun's plan itself is never entirely clear, but it is a project of some kind to enter, possess, or surrender to the glory, the pure light above the mantis. This book suggests ways in which that plan might fail. I always love this description. Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic 2nd edition, or The Refinements of Light, Julian Cosley had never wanted or expected to write a 2nd edition of his masterwork. Julian Cosley long regarded Solomon Husher as a charlatan, but his friend Nina Lagasse painted 3 paintings before her death in 1895, and these paintings apparently convinced Cosley to change his mind. With considerable irritation, he revised his magnum opus. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal. Cosley had always championed history rather than eternity, the exceptions, limitations, contradictions of freedom. But Husher's and Lagasse's work convinced him to believe in the paradox of the eternal ending, a means in which perfection might be reconciled with freedom. He's not happy about it. This is perhaps the angriest book ever written in support of a peaceful philosophy of acceptance, but Cosley was always scrupulous about his conclusions. And Newman, A Final Understanding. Eternity and history cannot be reconciled. Freedom cannot be perfection, not unless we understand the paradox of the eternal ending. And only in certain histories is that paradox possible. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the magnate can use it to win a particular victory. Magnate, you say? Okay. So I think the first thing I want to do is make sure that I have everything I need for the salon. So Douglas needs lantern, Corso needs grail, Peel needs moon, I believe. Yep. I think Yvette Southey is happy with anything. So let me just write these down. And again, the aim here is to try and clean up some of the different rooms. So we've got the refectory. Probably good during a cold winter to eat in the refectory anyway. So this shouldn't be too hard. So the Stargazy pie is a main course, so is the marinated roast. Oh, actually, okay, the fudge is an easy one. So all the bad things doing a good thing. So that's Corso. Now I'm going to need to find something with lantern. The stuffed dark marrow will help me with peel. I may have to switch out the fudge for something else, but I want to see what my options are. King's Luck pie is a little bit of a little overkill right now. Oh, Madeira cake. All right. In the 18th century, one would have a slice of this in the morning with a glass of Madeira, fortified wine from the Madeira Islands, volcanic yet lush, rugged yet balmy, bright with the calls of sandpipers and firecrests. This is the 20th century. We have afternoon tea now. We don't drink fortified wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. No more sandpipers, no more firecrests, but the cake's still good. Almonds. So maybe we do... Okay, here's what I'll do. Madeira cake, stuffed dark marrow. For Corso, for the Grail. So this is a first course, so maybe we do the onion rings as a side. So moon, Grail, lantern. Winter. I don't even know if I have a winter main, but... Well, pale marrow. Marrow is for everyone. And then we can use anything for Yvette Southey. Trying to think if there's something... I wonder if I still have a vegetable... Yep, vegetable stew. Unexciting, but also unobjectionable. Okay, so with that in mind, I now need to get everyone their beverages. So I thought I saw a glass of water kicking around somewhere, but... I actually think the Isle water will also cover me for Aaron Peel. I'll maybe get a replacement then. And I think we had some cocoa left over. Just trying to remember what... Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so Douglas's tea. We could also have done the coffee, but I've already poured this. So there's one for Aaron Peel. And then the cocoa for Corso. And you know what? I think I got a leftover cup of something. Oh, no, that's the other playthrough. Yeah, here's the water. Random question. I believe the first stream of yours I watched was Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. So I was wondering if I ever got around to playing the sequel. I haven't actually. I would like to play the sequel because I do have a Game Pass subscription. That also means you must have seen me play the game while reading an econometrics text. I'd really like to, but obviously I've been tied up with this. But I'm glad that you mentioned that, Jamie, because I really would like to play it, and that seems like that would be a good. I don't know if it's as short. The sequel's as short as the first one, but it actually feels like that would be a good change of pace when this one's done. Two, 4, 5. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. We've got everything we need for the Salem, but we will do it tomorrow. So I think what I'm going to do, because tomorrow I'm going to want to use my Elements of the Soul to... I want to use my Elements of the Soul to, like, actually do the Salon. I'm going to read these texts one at a time, specifically so I can read the Pneuma, or the Newman. And then I am going to do a round where I read the descriptions of the rooms, but I'll do that after all the texts are. Yeah, I'll try and telegraph when that happens, Jamie, because I've got so many things that I want to do, and I know there's a lot of things people are looking forward to. But I think what's nice about that one is that it's not as big of a commitment as, like I'd love to do. Okay, like I'll give you an example. Like I loved doing XCOM, right? XCOM is exactly my kind of game. I like strategy games. XCOM's wonderful, but it's not a short one, particularly for me when I'm gonna agonize over a bunch of choices and then reload when I get crushed. So one thing that's appealing is if I can get something done, in a short period of time, if people don't care for it, then that's fine because it's not a major disruption. Whereas, I can completely understand people who might have unfollowed the channel because it's been Book of Hours forever. And if it's not for them, they're, obviously I don't expect them to, to suffer through it all. So yes, I'd say there's a number of reasons why I think Hellblade would be a really good choice. Okay, the sun's design. A scorched slab of black corundum, minutely scratched on every side with intricate ideoglyphs. In the city of Emesa, beneath the Church of the Holy Belt, in a sarcophagus of black corundum, Elagabalus lies, accursed of Janus, neither long nor mortal, neither man nor woman, neither a liar nor a speaker of truth, neither real nor imagined. On his light-suffused skin is made manifest the sun and splendor's grand design. Elagabalus is the source of one half of this text. The source of the other half is obscure, but its power is evident. It is impossible to be certain if the sun really planned for us to enter eternity. It is impossible to be sure if the Grail, the Vagabond, and the Forge stole this birthright from us, or saved us from it. But there is a great secret here. The paths of the sun. The sun has charted his paths beyond walls and woods and bounds. When the sun lights our way, when we are ready, all of us will enter eternity, at least in the right history. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the cartographer and the Twiceborn can win a particular victory. I think what I'll do, because I'm interested in the text of this, I'll focus on the words here, and I imagine it might be nice maybe if people can discover which legacy is appropriate for these. If you don't mind, I have a little over an hour left, but I could use a refill of my tea, so I'm going to take a small break. Also, I debated about doing this, so one of the things that I did this year, specifically because of this game, is I picked up Ovid's Fasti, and I've been reading it along with the month. Actually, also, today was a really exciting day. I've been a 1 year at my new job, and I still love it. So that's nice. I've actually also been able to do my first like work travel, which I'm sure the novelty will wear off. But like, I'm used to having like it's not the first job I've had like some kind of nobody knows the answer to this. You have to figure this out kind of problem. I like those problems. But very rarely are they ones that have made me, go outside the city. So, yeah, like did more travel last year than I don't know, like the preceding 5. Anyway, that was a fun little holiday, but or not holiday, a little milestone. But yeah, this year because it was January. I had a mind to start reading Fasti, and I've liked it. But there's a fun description of Janus near the start, which, if you will indulge me, I will share when I find my book. But I'm gonna get some tea. I will be back. Not too long. I don't think it's. I have a little bit of water left in the kettle, so normally if I don't fill it up, it doesn't take as long. But I'm going to take some time just to get myself refreshed. For those of you who've been here since the start, or for those of you who have just, recently arrived, get up, have a stretch. Actually, Oswin's bundled up under a heated blanket, so you stay put. But no, for the rest, for all of you, take care of yourselves. I will be back as soon as I can. And I will do a small digression on Fasti, because I think a number of you who are really into Book of Hours may find it an interesting read. But I'm going to do that after I get a drink. So see you all in a little bit. Okay, that was slightly longer than I wanted. Thank you everybody for your patience. We're back. What was I up to? Okay, so we've read the sun's design. And again, this is just a nice little way for me to do something that I had already planned while I'm waiting for the salon to begin. So it's probably going to take up all my Arab, but that's fine because I only have, I think, 2 more rounds of this. All right, the Emeranis Batelli. So this one would be Fusine. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Really shouldn't be putting that with the books. Okay, the Emeranis Batelli, a fragment of iron alloy meteorite carefully inscribed and polished. Who gave us fire? Who gave us steel? What is the sound of dusk? Of what alloy is wind forged? Esoteric secrets of metallurgy and resonance are revealed, including directions towards the creation of a terrible bell. The bells of Ys. Ys by her arts found the strike tone that shakes the hours. For this reason, among many, the hours discourage traffic with Ys, but a bell cast from this secret could speak the Ys note. So I think I already had this on my list, but obviously there's a Ys reference there. I did not. All right, that definitely needs... So that's why we read these. The good news is, for those of you who are waiting to get past this book reading part, we will be doing the salon tomorrow. Tomorrow in game, not on stream, obviously. Coprolith Omphalos, what is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed and something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. Weaving the world. The histories, they say, are braided like hair or tangled like roots. What is the shape of that knot? Funny you should ask. So we don't have enough time to be able to finish this, to read another one in the morning. But we will invite everyone for a salon. The postmistress keeps the gate to the wider world. In her left hand is the lightning, which is to say the telegraph, and in her right the thunder, which is to say the only telephone in Brandkrug. So we will invite them in order. What am I doing? I don't have money in that screen. There we go. Stamp, envelope, send. I can actually probably get away with making a bit of money at the Sweet Bones while we do this. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. All right. Now we still have a little bit of a wait ahead of us just because we also want to wait to the afternoon to maximize the number of encounters. And at this point, it's less about getting the memories and more about... it's really more about maximizing the number of interactions between the different guests. I don't know if I've ever... I'm sure I've had a couple of these people... together, but Douglas and Zachary might be interesting because they both came from the Suppression Bureau. Corso received my invitation. Did Yvette receive my invitation? All right, Zachary's here. Aaron Peel's here. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to do is start taking some notes of the mysteries that they are interested in. So Yvette is Winter and Moon. Zachary is Nock and Winter. Aaron is... Oh, hang on. So he has Moon aspect and is interested in Moon. Do we have anybody else who has an aspect? Interesting. Anyways, he's interested in Moon and Moth. And Douglas is Lantern and Heart. Now, for those of you that don't know this, so D.I. Douglas Moore is a reference. So there's a character in the preceding game, Cultist Simulator, called the Weary Detective. I believe he is the first sort of antagonist. Okay, well, Mr. Alden might be the first antagonist you run into, but the Weary Detective is among one of the first antagonists you run into in the game. And it's only if you somehow convert him that you learn his name, or at least make him cease being the Weary Detective. You find out that his name is Douglas, and it's in fact this game where you learn his name is Douglas Moore. The other thing that I like, so if we talk with Corso, conversation with Senior Corso, a conversation with Yvette, a conversation with Wakefield, a conversation with Dr. Peel, and when you talk to D.I. Douglas Moore, a conversation with a very tired detective. So, I like these little details. Signor Corso Reverti, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics, few would deny his acuteness. Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, as happy with questions as with answers. Mr. Zachary Wakefield, marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he has grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, Thunderskin devotee. I'd rather say confident. Impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings, too, at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. And D.I. Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. I will also share that we've got the Flayed Tantra. For those of you that haven't done this encounter, I think this one's kind of fun. So, the Flayed Tantra, this tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with the many qualities of the mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. Hey, what do you think about this? Undiplomatic librarian. Every one of us still living. We all shed histories as a snake casts its skin, and I cast off this history long ago. I have no wish at all, to revisit it. All right, so we still have a little bit of time before we do the salon. Still morning, the third hour, and when the office of terse once was sung, watch as the day opens like a door. All right, midday before the Great Division, this was the 6th hour when the priests led hymns to the sun and splendor. Now noon, as they say, is not as it was. Perhaps the new king will change that. We're having lunch in the refectory. Here the whole curia used to meet, the librarian and the secretary solvent, vigilant, and enigmatic. Sometimes even the secretary nunciant, though the duties of that office usually kept him away from the house. But there has only ever been one secretary persistent, and she never liked to eat in company. That was in the good times of the curia's heyday. In later years, the governor of the jail would sit at one end, the librarian at the other, and the clock would tick away the long silences between their words. For lunch, we are enjoying vegetable stew, unexciting but also unobjectionable, onion rings, an American import that became popular in England these last few years, improbably via the pages of Vogue. A stuffed dark marrow. This was a marrow with secrets. Now it's a dish for misties. We also have a stuffed pale marrow. This was a marrow redolent of sorrow. Now it's a dish to comfort the damned. And probably my favorite out of the 5 that we're reading here, the Madeira cake. In the 18th century, one would have a slice of this in the morning with a glass of Madeira, fortified wine from the Madeira Islands. Volcanic yet lush, rugged yet balmy, bright with the calls of sandpipers and firecrests. This is the 20th century. We have afternoon tea now. We don't drink fortified wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. No more sandpipers, no more firecrests. But the cake's still good. Almonds. And everybody will be enjoying Isle water. TRN Limited Drinking Cocoa, TRN Spices and Savors Department markets this as the secret sacrament of the last Inca. And Cater and Hero Second Flush Assam, tea from the land of the real unicorn, imported by Cater and Hero. A salon in the refectory, the room where once the curia met, a fitting venue for a salon. Like guests take their places for lunch. Keep an eye on the salon as it progresses. You will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. We'll just leave that for now. A formal meal. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing you an extra interaction between your guests. Energetic exchanges. Spice up the conversation. Add an Arab card. Douglas tries to reminisce with Zachary about their shared work at the Suppression Bureau, the time they had to suppress a Precussigant troop which was roaming the Forest of Dean, but Zachary only stares and shakes his head. I don't remember. I don't remember. I remember that it was cold. I don't remember. Conversation ebbs and flows. Instinct and emotion. Add a tryst card. Yvette and Corso discuss the Reckoner mobs, the predatory merchants of years of life. Yvette tentatively suggests that she might like Corso to put her in touch with the Reckoners if he can, but he discourages her. Do you know what sanding is, or dolling? Find out, Dr. Southey, and then ask me again. Say something witty, add a Shapt card. Remember, Aaron tells Zachary, that it's always too late eventually, but it's never... let's try that again. Remember, Aaron tells Zachary, that it's always too late eventually, but it never is until then. Zachary lets out a long sigh. You always say that. It's less helpful than you think it is. Another say something witty. Corso and Aaron are chuckling together about Musgrave DeWolf's theories on the Great Ink Porphyryne. Instinct and emotion, add a tryst card. Zachary asks Aaron about the fabled war between the Great Hooded Princes and the Obliviots. Aaron favors Zachary with his triangular smile. It wasn't really a war. Mother Manyarm just took offense at some of their rights. Well, their habits. And we were all still her children. Ask about dreams. Add a Fett card. Aaron and Corso are discussing a scheme to track down valuable books by observing the effects of their ink on the dreams of those nearby, but Corso subsides into a sulk when it becomes apparent that Aaron is not taking the idea seriously. A lively meal concludes. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. There's two things I wanted to bring up. Might as well get a little money back. One's just a fun little consider, which I'll put up here. I just need to remember the painting. Here it is. Have any of you inspected Departure before? I kind of like it. All right, and we have... All right, so the Lively Salon, the... Satisfaction, get a Curious Hunch. Alright, so you've got Inks of Revelation, Edicts Liminal, another Inks of Revelation, Putrefactions and Calcinations, Snow Stories, and Quenchings and Quellings. So I do want to actually work out a game plan for this. So Inks of Containment's the first one for sure. In fact, I think there's a few that are kind of no-brainers here. So I'm going to put these on my to-do list. Now, this sort of puts me off any plans for sort of, what to do at the end game of this. But I don't mind leveling this stuff up. It doesn't take too long. So we'll put putrefactions and calcination. No, let's do quenchings and quellings towards inks of containment. Then snow stories and putrefactions and calcinations can both level their own skills up. So that would look something like this. The Edict's Liminal. Interesting. So what I think I'll do on that one is I'll actually apply that to door and wall because I've got a couple of other moths that can use the Inks of Revelation. So So from there, Inks of Revelation, I'll just double check that I don't have any stragglers in terms of Lantern, but I think they're all level 8 now. Yeah, I guess except for Inks of Revelation, but we have other options there. So weaving and not working, and transformations and liberations. Okay. So the Inks of Containment's probably going to be the easiest one for me to deal with, so I will get the 5 winter and... it's winter and winter and moon, rather. So basically anything will do here. So we've got 1... let's do... This is always a favorite. Let's do crossing to noon. That's 3. Four. And 5. What's my best option here? Oh, these will do. Let's do Serenity of the Blackwood. Because I think this one's kind of talking about noon without coming out and saying it. And I do want to continue my progress on the text. So we did Weaving the World. Now we'll do the Servant Route, which needs Crack Track. Oh yeah, I can also use the fog. Oh well. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. I guess we can keep the satisfaction. All right, so this is the description for departure. Here, Valentine has painted gulls migrating across a darkening sea. Each winter, the black-backed gulls would leave Brandkrug for warmer climes. Valentine would command a candlelit dinner on the beach in their honor, with dancing and drumming, though he would never attend, only watch approvingly from the Gullscry Tower, which is probably one of my favorite images. Actually, I guess it would... Who knows? Would it be the summit or would it be the Logia? Because you can kind of see the beach from it here. Anyways, I really do like the image of Valentine looking down at the gull celebration. I don't know. It's the little details. So we can speed things up a little bit. Like I said, this is going to take a bit of effort. Or, well, sorry, I don't mean a bit. Oh, nuts! All right. As much as I love to read these texts again, the whole purpose of reading those was, or of getting those was so I could level up. No, that was the one that I actually could get the details from. Ah! Yeah, so this is the drawback of speeding up if I tap the space wrong. Okay. Let's get back on track. So what I'll do instead this time, I'm going to take a slightly different approach. We'll still read everything. We'll still everything kind of read everything that I planned before. But the idea, the one difference is going to be that actually in this case we'll do as the sun is course. The difference this time around will be I'm going to also set up the next few upgrades. Okay. These are all fear. So knock and I think it's knock and forge if it's door and wall. Yeah. So that one's completely different from everything else I'm looking for. Although we're not going to have enough from our first batch. So that gets me a knock. We'll probably do a pattern as well. So for that, let's do... Oh, this looks like a disaster. We'll do just verse. And then I figure I'll sneak another one in because there's nothing that I want to do with the consider verb right now. So for that, again, it's knock or forge. Incandescent Tantra seems like a good candidate. What have we got the most of? Whist. And again, at some point, so there's three things that I want to do that are sort of on the to-do list at some point. One, I would like to sort of read all the descriptions of the rooms to look for any references to Noon or Ys, or the City Unbuilt. I would like to read all of all of the entries in the Tree of Wisdoms, again, to see any references to Noon or Ys. And I want to get an invitation for every individual I guess, actually, it doesn't have to be every individual. I can knock off Corso, Yvette's, Zachary, Aaron, and Douglas. But again, I want the option of basically inviting everybody over for the next event when it comes up. All right, I haven't learned my... Oh, Oriflammes. Oriflammes established 1776, Sense, Signs, Sciences. Dear librarian, we would like to offer you this opportunity to purchase Sunset Passages. A rather simple... Oh man, a really expensive but simple forged text. Oriflammes thanks you for your custom. Okay. Serpent root, a mass of rootstock, shiny with age, but still somehow viable. Tiny spidery scratchings marked with embedded eggshell shards encode a cryptic message. Seaborn, tide-drawn, Meniscate sister, witch lover. The House of the Moon will always have its messenger, though its messenger is different each time, in eye and flesh and heart. Feats, fights, posterns, loopholes set down against the advent of eternity by powers favoring imperfection and impermanence. Loopholes. When eternity came into the world, certain prudent powers arranged loopholes. The House of the Moon, the persistence of possibility, the right to vengeance. In the right histories, those loopholes will open again. These, incidentally, help me with my... with leveling up whatever I'm interested in. I'm going to use Ava's desk again to read the next one, just because, again, I'd like to say I've well and truly read what's available and what we're... oh, right, this is VAC, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm going to have to collect everything first. But yeah, so I'd like to sort of say the books, we've got our first pass done. Everything else is going to be when I buy them from Oriflammes. So the Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the mantis through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and Knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which can be used to raise a corpse to half-life, in memory of he who bled for the wood, but the marginalia claim that the mother of ants no longer permits use of this rite. Oh, sorry, I threatened I was going to do some Ovid Fasti. Let me grab it, actually, because this one I do think is interesting. I've just lost the reference to Janus that I was looking for. Sorry. I took the time to get the book and then put it down. I think I remember where I put it, but just give me a second. Okay, so remembering that the original inspiration for this was the references to Janus in sorry, let me just see if I... I don't know if I should just read this from the start, because it's a couple pages in that I'm looking for. I'll do my best to get the first bit done here quickly. But I also haven't read this out loud before, so I'm probably going to mess it up. So this is about the Roman calendar. Well, it's not complete. Some people have suggested its incompleteness is actually a feature. But this is by my favorite Roman poet, Ovid. Some of you may know him from Metamorphoses, which is a really great epic poem. Fasti, this is book 1. Times and their causes, arranged through the Latin year. Stars sunk beneath earth and risen, I'll sing. View this work peacefully, Caesar Germanicus, and direct the course of my timid ship. Do not refuse a trifling honor. Be present to support service vowed to your godhead. You will recognize sacred rites unearthed from ancient annals, and how each day deserved its mark. You will discover here the feast days of your house, and often read of your grandfather and father. The glories they have stamped on the painted Fasti, you too will win with Drusus, your brother. Let others sing of Caesar's arms, me of Caesar's altars, and all the days he added to our rites. Sanction with a nod my effort to laud your kin, and drive from my heart this dreadful terror. Look kindly upon me and empower my song. Genius stands and declines with your gaze. My page shakes at the judgment of the learned princeps, and if sent to be read by the Claros god. We witness the eloquence of your refined voice, helping fearful victims with civil arms. We know, too, when passion impels you to our art, how mightily your flood of talent rolls. If it's allowed and lawful, poet, guide a poet's reins, gladden the whole year with your auspices. Times were being arranged by the city's founder, when he established 10 months for his year. Clearly, Romulus, you studied arms more than stars. The conquest of neighbors was your main care. Yet reason too, Caesar, may have prompted him, and he has grounds to defend his error. He decreed the time an infant needs to quit its mother's womb sufficient for a year. The same number of months after her husband's death witness a wife's grief in a widowed home. Purple-gowned Quirinus was mindful of these things when he gave simple folk the year's rules. The month of Mars was first, that of Venus second. She was his line's princeps. Mars was his father. The third was named for the old, the fourth for the young. The bunch following were marked by number. Numa did not pass Janus or our ancestral dead, and prefixed 2 months to the ancient 10. In case you do not know the rules of different days, Lucifer's duties are not all the same. They is nefastus when the 3 words are mute. Fastus when legal action is allowed. Do not think the rules remained fixed for the whole day. What's fastest now was nefastus this morning. After the god gets his sacrifice, all speech is allowed. And the distinguished praetor's words are freed. A day exists too when law locks people in booths. One too, which recurs in cycles of 9. Astona's kalends are claimed for Juno's cult. A great white lamb falls for Jove on the Ides. No god protects the nons. The day after these 3, take care you are not deceived, will be black. The curse is from history. On those days Rome suffered tearful losses beneath the frown of Mars. I have stated once what applies to the whole Fasti, lest I am forced to cut the cord of events. January 1st, Calends Fastus. Look, Germanicus, Janus proclaims a happy year for you and is present to start my song. Two-headed Janus, source of the silent gliding year, who alone of the gods see your own back. Be present for our leaders, whose labors secure peace for the teeming earth, peace for the ocean. Be present for your senators and Quirinus folk. Unlock our gleaming temples with your nod. The lucky day dawns. Voice and heart should show respect. You must now speak good words on this good day. Listen to no lawsuits. Clear the air of frenzied strife. Suspend your labors, jaundiced mob. See how the air glimmers with its perfumed fires, and Sicilian saffron cracks on blazing hearths. The flame lashes the golden shrines with light and spreads flickering radiance on the temple roofs. Spotless clothes process towards the Tarpeian heights. The people's color matches their feast day. Now new rods of office lead, new purple dazzles, the glinting ivory feels new weight. Unbroken bullocks offer their necks to the axe, fattened by the grass of the Philician fields. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Or possibly Philiscan fields? Jupiter, viewing all the world from his citadel, observes nothing un-Roman to protect. Hail, joyful day, and happier returns always, worthy festival of a master people. Yet what god am I to call you, Biform Janus? For Greece has no deity like you. Produce the reason why you are the only god to see what is behind and what ahead. When I contemplated this, writing tablets in my hand, the house appeared much brighter than before. Suddenly, holy Janus, in marvelous two-headed form, thrust his binary face before my eyes. I panicked, and I felt my hair spike with fear, my heart iced over with a sudden chill. Clutching a staff in his right hand, a key in his left, he delivered this from his facing face. Lose your fear, industrious poet of the days, and learn what you seek, marking my words. The ancients, since I'm a primitive thing, called me Chaos. Watch me sing events long ago. This lucent air and the other three elements, fire, water, and earth, were a single heap. Once dissension of its matter had split the mass, which departed in fragments for new homes. Flame headed for the heights, the next place took the air, earth and the ocean settled in midground. Then I, who had been a ball and faceless hulk, got the looks and limbs proper to a god. Now as a small token of my once confused shape, my front and back appear identical. Hear the other cause of the form you ask about, so you may now know both it and my duties. Whenever you see around sky, ocean, clouds, earth, they are all closed and opened by my hand. The vast world's safekeeping belongs to me alone. Only I have the right to turn its hinge. When I choose to release peace from her tranquil house, she strolls the unlending highways freely. The whole globe would be confounded with deadly blood if unbending bars did not closet war. I sit at heaven's doors with the gentle hours. Jupiter goes and comes through my office. Hence I am called Janus. When the priest offers cakes of barley and the spelt mingled with salt, you'll laugh at my names. Sometimes I'm called Patulchus, sometimes Clusius in sacrificial tones. Surely crude antiquity wished to signify different functions with these alternate names. I've told you my power, now learn the cause of my form. Yet you already see this too in part. Every door has two fronts, this side and that. One of them views the people, one the lar. Just as your janitor, seated by the threshold, watches the exits and the entrances, so I, the janitor of the celestial court, observe the east and west together. You see Hecate's faces turned in three directions, so she can protect the triple crossroads. I too, so I waste no time in swiveling my neck, am allowed to see two ways without movement. He had spoken, and he had signaled with his look an openness to further questions. I took heart and thanked the god without any fear, and uttered more words, eyeing the ground. Come now, tell me why the new year starts in the cold, which would far better commence in the spring. Everything flowers then, time has new life, and the new buds plump on the bursting shoots. Freshly formed foliage then canopies the trees, sprouting grasses penetrate the topsoil. Melodious birdsong caresses the balmy air, and cattle play and frolic in the fields. The suns are seductive, the strange swallow appears, and makes its mud nest in the soaring eaves. Then land endures tillage and is renewed by the plough. This would rightly have been called the New Year. I had questioned him at length. He did not wait long, but limited his words to 2 verses. Winter has the first new sun and the last old one, so Phoebus and the year begin the same. After this I was wondering why the first day had lawsuits. Learn the cause, Janus says. I entrusted this newborn time to business, lest the new year's start enervate the whole. Every man gives a taste of his occupation and offers some proof of his normal work. Next me. Why, though I propitiate other gods, Janus, do I offer you wine and incense first? So you can obtain access through me, the doorman, he says, to any of the gods as you please. But why do we utter joyful words on your kalends and exchange our mutual good wishes? Then the god leans upon the stick in his right hand and declares, Beginnings contain omens. The first sound makes you prick your timorous ears, and the augur ponders the first bird seen. The gods' temples and ears are now open. No tongue frames pointless prayers, and words possess weight. Janus had stopped. I did not keep my silence long. His concluding words and my own words brushed. "What's behind the date gifts and wrinkled figs?" I said, "and honey glistening in a snow-white pot?" "An omen," he says, "so their flavor sticks to things, and the year's journeys sweetly from the start." This is the part I was looking to share. "I understand the sweet gifts," explained the cash, "so no part of your festival eludes me." He laughed and said, "Oh, how your century deceives you. You think honey is sweeter than cash? Even in Saturnus' reign, I hardly saw anyone whose soul did not respond to sweet lucre. In time, love of possessions grew. Now at its height, it can scarcely proceed any further. Wealth has more value now than in earlier times, when the people were poor, when Rome was new, when a little hut contained Quirinus, child of Mars, and river grass supplied a tiny bed. Jupiter could hardly stand in his narrow shrine. Jove's hand cradled a thunderbolt of clay. They adorned the capital with leaves, and now with gems. A senator pastured his own sheep. No one was ashamed to sleep peacefully on straw and to cushion his head upon hay. The praetor gave people justice fresh from the plow, and thin silver plate was a felony. But after the fortune of this place lifted her head, and Rome's climbing pinnacle touched the gods, wealth increased, and the ranging passion for wealth. In great affluence, people rummage for more. They sweat to gain what they may spend, to regain what they have spent. The changes feed the vice. They are like men with bellies swollen from dropsy, who thirst for water the more they drink. Today net worth is worth. Finance supplies office. Finance friendships. The poor are all downtrod. Yet you inquire if cash provides useful omens, and why antique copper delights our hands. People once gave coppers. Now gold's a better prospect. The old money surrendered to the new. We too like golden temples, although we praise the ancient ones. Majesty suits a god. We eulogize olden years, but enjoy our own. Yet each custom merits equal respect. So there's definitely a lot more to this, but I've already gone on really far. But I think for those of you who are fans of this game, you will probably see more than a few lines in there, and I did try to emphasize a few of them, as to why this is probably a good book to read if you haven't checked it out. So it's Ovid Fasti. I was reading the Penguin Classics edition. And for those of you who maybe aren't deep into Book of Hours, I will offer the description on the back of the book, because I think this on its own is already a really great, really great reason for reading it. Beneath a patriotic facade, Ovid's final poem is deliciously subversive of the values and propaganda of the emperor who sent him into exile. One of the fullest and most enjoyable sources of information on Roman myth and religion, the Fasti is both a calendar of daily rituals and a witty sequence of stories recounted in a variety of styles and genres: comic, tragic, elegiac, epic, and erotic. Yet many of them contain uncomfortable political echoes. Augustus tried to control his subjects by imposing his own version of history and annual cycle of festivals on them. But Ovid, banished to the Black Sea, brilliantly debunks the official heroes and power structures. Parenthetical opens. After celebrating the emperor as Jupiter on Earth, for example, he deliberately juxtaposes a story showing the king of gods as a savage rapist. Endlessly playful and the work of real integrity and courage, a superb climax to the career of one of Rome's greatest writers. Cured, how are you doing? So yeah, Ovid Fasti, get it at your library, get the Penguin edition. They're like super cheap if you can find a used one. Definitely good reading, and definitely relevant if you are interested in Book of Hours. As the sun his course, Joel of the Bridge, a retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexpensive... But yeah, actually the one line I really wanted in there was Janus to basically say, what do you mean, why do you offer us money? It's all about the grind, man. Yeah, I was actually saying, Cured, I celebrated 1 year at my new job today, and I'm still really happy to be there. And I've been enjoying Book of Hours. I took a small break to read probably the first 8 pages of Fasti. I have no idea if anybody else got anything out of that, but I really like that poem. Joel of the Bridge, retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, king of kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering that he retires to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At dawn on the 4th day, Alexander announces, "The sun has his course upon which he returns, and so do I." He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and a rite of sacred betrayal. For, Joel opines, without betrayal there would be an end to war. Hey, that's great to hear, Jamie. If you haven't read it as well, his epic Metamorphoses is definitely one that I'm very fond of too. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation. Actually, it's fair to say I like everything that Ovid has done, but the 2 big ones I think would be Fasti and Metamorphoses. Although if you want a neat one, he did one called Heroides, which is basically famous women from mythology writing their husbands. So like Penelope's asking Odysseus, like, "Where the hell are you?" and such. It's a really good one. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her 2 grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence. We might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from a family curse, the pale heritage of Hafren, her forebear, or the curse placed upon her line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them, rather than accept the 3 deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover that they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. This is what I think the Noon references, among contextual clues as well. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. The Crossing to Noon, the mystic Garcia Sauri gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his 3rd sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sauri acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously that it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. A Manual for Departure, the author, who identifies itself as the Jekadu, claims to be one of the great hooded princes of the land of the river. The style is informal, even chatty. No, these doors shouldn't be recorded, but if we had only recorded things before we'd had to leave the 5th history, we would be in a much better state. So here I am writing it down, and if you don't like it, you can sanction me. The Manual for Departure lists a number of strategies, occult, martial, and political, for quick escapes. Many are irrelevant, obsolete, or enigmatic, but the manual does include a number of powerful techniques for opening portals. Just Verse, a rare surviving copy of Christopher Olopoly's notoriously unsuccessful volume of experimental poetry published in 1912. Alopoli is clearly more interested in the occult rather than the aesthetic aspects of the work. By most measures, the rhymes are contrived, the meter is inconsistent, the imagery banal. Still, even the worst verses have a compelling quality, and I find myself drumming my fingers on the desk to accompany their rhythms. In an afterword, Alopoli discusses mnemonic holometaboli, by which he seems to mean a sort of crafting process where memories, when fed into a preliminal meter technique in the presence of enough knock or rows, can blossom and fissure into more potent versions of themselves. I will share, by the way, so I mentioned a couple of times during the AMAs. Now, obviously, that was intended to be about traveling at night, but I was curious about this. There are a couple of times when specifically reading poetry, like reading something with something that's in verse, something with a specific rhythm, there's a reference to drumming your fingers on the desk. And specifically, I want to highlight here, it doesn't seem to ever be with the music, right? It's not toe tapping jazz or anything like that. It's always with the verse. And it's one of these things that reads, I know I've talked a couple of times about how like there's that dream of the curiosities in Cultist Simulator, and how those are tied to things that were on the writer Alexis Kennedy's desk at the time. So this was one of these things that feels like it could be another thing drawn from life. So I had to ask, like, you know, is this actually something that you do when you read poetry? And someone in this, I always find this kind of funny. Like, I like it when people provide some extra context that I haven't realized. But I always find it really funny how in an AMA, people try to answer questions for the person doing the AMA. So in this case, someone really helpfully pointed out that there were actually some passages in Fallen London that also talked about tapping your fingers for the rhythm. And they took that as, this has to be something that they do. But as it turns out, there were two things that interested me about the response. One was, as far as he could tell, no, that's not something that he does when he reads poetry. And then the second one that I noted was the comment that this is an uncharacteristically troll-free question from me, which, absolutely fair comment. Anyway, I like just verse. I actually like the concept of just verse and the radical measure. And the incandescent tantra. Michael Blockley, the eccentric iron magnate, was fond of quoting from this tantra. Blockley died in a factory fire. Dialogues with an entity called the Crucible Prince. The prince warns about the appetites of his mistress, the burning queen, and the peril of the naked desire she shares with the sun, but professes his loyalty nevertheless. A right which changes is necessarily a right which destroys, but a great change requires a destruction of savage extent. Okay. So I don't have that much time left for tonight. We might be able to get one more batch of books read. But let's start with the Inks of Containment leveling that I wanted to do. So we'll use the loopholes in this case because we know that's going to be going away. We'll do the Stolen Secret, the Contradiction, the Regret, I guess the Confounding Parable. Oh, excuse me. So I'm just going to make a note of I got a couple things I have to erase. So the Winter Salon is done. So that'll leave the spring one for probably Friday's stream. Okay, so the Edict's Liminal I was going to use to level up door and wall. So that's knock and forge that I need. Specifically 7 knock and forge. So let's work on... first of all, I want to read another Newman. All right. Knock and forge. So we can get another knock from Stolen Secrets. We already have a foresight. We already have a pattern. Fear doesn't help. We've already got the salt. But regret will get me something. So let's do... I have the ivory book. I don't know if I have the iron book, though. Yeah, I guess we can do it. So sorry, that was 1, 2, so that's 6 of 7. So I need one more winter or... No, sorry, one more knocker forge. That says to me that I should probably be considering... Actually, hang on. Yeah, Irresistible Feast doesn't help me there. So I think for this one, I'm going to have to delay my... I'm going to have to delay the upgrade for that, but we will take the Edict's Liminal and make the Name Day Riddle. Or I could use the Curious Hunch as well, I suppose. Okay, and then with the remaining desks that I have... Weaving and Not Working wants Heart and Moth. So the Cheerful Ditties are an option, but we can get that from music. We already have the Satisfaction. Don't have Impulses yet. Gossip gives me Grail and Rose, so that doesn't help. Oh, Hindsight would have been a good... Actually, I don't really need it now. Oh, right. I was like, where's the Solace? The Solace is in the other room. But I know there's not a whole lot of moth on its own. So I think I'm probably going to have my work cut out for me for Weaving and Not Working. And in fact, for Transformations and between Weaving and Not Working and Transformations and Liberations, I'm already pursuing as much Moth and Forge as I can already get. So maybe I do read the Perugian Diaries because I don't have anything else to work with. That'll give me a little something to think about for Friday's stream. We'll get through it. It's just probably going to be a little more... Oh, for heaven's sake. I forgot to write down putrefactions and calcinations and snow stories being able to level up their own. Oh dear. All right, a little embarrassing, but we still have open desk. The only thing, we've kind of lost one desk because I could have used the cheerful ditty, but that's fine. I think the best way to go about that would be, we'll just read the we'll kind of read through the cycle again, and then I'll kind of work out the way through when I'm a little clearer. You know, I think I'm actually going to leave this the way that I did. Yeah, none of these really help. Okay, I think I'm actually going to leave this the way that I did for the start of this stream and just have a whole bunch of books queued up for the next bit of reading. So the overall plan here, Snow Stories will level up Snow Stories, Putrefactions and Calcinations will level up Putrefactions and Calcinations. Then we use Edict's Liminal to level up Door and Wall, and Inks of Revelation will be used to level up Weaving and Not Working. So basically there's just more skills to level up than I thought, and of course because we're raising our skill floor by quite a bit, it's a bigger task than it used to be, but it does give me something to do over the course of winter. In terms of future events, we're waiting on the purchase of Sunset Passages, so that one will give me Sacra Solis Invicti. That one's kind of an interesting one for the simple reason it's already at the top level, but my Lantern and my Sky are actually already quite high, so I think in this case it would be Lockworks and Clockworks, if I'm not mistaken. Because, no, actually Applebright Euphonies is also 7. So I guess in this case we would level up Applebright Euphonies. But we'll only have one of those. And then when we get to spring, that'll be the last batch of invitation. I'm trying to remember why I did that specific batch of invitations. I think it was to try and see who was inspired to join the Lighthouse Institute. So I'm just taking a look at my future plans on here. But yeah, the main goal, I'm going to slowly read the remaining texts with a Newman inside of it. That's going to be so I can get any last Ys or Noon information. And then probably on Friday, we're going to read through the room descriptions as well as the Tree of Wisdoms to gather any last information on Noon or Ys. If I feel I need to follow up on certain things we find on those, I'll find the relevant books and read them. But chances are I will I'll make a decision on the history that I'm writing. Whether or not I write the history is another question, because there's nothing that really forces me to do that at the time. But at the very least, it'd be nice to sort of narrow the playthrough down to one of the two options that I'm thinking about. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. But let's see who is online. I might be able to start a bit closer to the time that I want to on Friday. No promises, because, I mean, so the one thing that's nice about the current the current weather is that it definitely makes me less inclined to go for a walk to clear my head. But I'm gonna do my best to like get the I'm gonna do my best to kind of get all my stuff finished for Friday and move in and like start the stream on time properly. After we'll see where we're sitting after the spring salon. I think at that point I'm going to start cramming as many people as I can into an event in one day and see if that works. Because again, I would like to try and advance the Lighthouse Institute material and sort of finish the playthrough. But we also have a few people who are live. I noticed that Prosciutto Fist, who I originally found through Book of Hours, is currently playing Graveyard Keeper. And I actually know she's quite likes and is rather good at sort of Stardew Valley-like games. I actually found the game Sunhaven through her. So I figured it'd be nice to give her a raid. Viridian is also still doing Grand Theft Auto 5 and actually has quite a number of people watching her right now. But I also know that she was near the end of her stream last time we hosted, so I figure I'll change it up a little bit. And if nothing else, I've been particularly trolly towards Pro during her Death's Door run, so it feels appropriate to, raid her as a way of apology. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. See you on Friday, and have a lovely couple of days. Enjoy Pro. Bye.